Audiobook presents an unabridged recording of Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoyevsky, translated by Constance Garnett, narrated by George Guidel. This work was first published in 1866. This recording is copyrighted 1991 by Recorded Books. Fyodor Dostoyevsky was born in Moscow on October 30, 1821, and his 60 years of life spanned a time of great change in Russian history. As a young man, Dostoyevsky became part of the liberal intelligentsia and found himself heralded by some members of radical groups. In 1849, he was arrested and imprisoned for radical activity and sentenced to die. Moments before being shot by a firing squad, a pardon was given by the Tsar, and he was instead given 4 years of hard labor in a Siberian prison camp. Dostoyevsky was profoundly changed by this experience, and it was his lifelong struggle to suppress the rebel in his soul that has left us with one of the world's most compelling depictions of a man at war with himself. And now, Crime and Punishment.
Chapter 1. On an exceptionally hot evening, early in July, a young man came out of the garret in which he lodged in S Place, and walked slowly, as though in hesitation, towards K Bridge. He had successfully avoided meeting his landlady on the staircase. His garret was under the roof of a high, 5-storied house, and was more like a cupboard than a room. The landlady, who provided him with garret, dinners, and attendance, lived on the floor below, and every time he went out, he was obliged to pass her kitchen, the door of which invariably stood open. And each time he passed, the young man had a sick, frightened feeling, which made him scowl and feel ashamed. He was hopelessly in debt to his landlady, and was afraid of meeting her. This was not because he was cowardly and abject, quite the contrary. But for some time past, he had been in an overstrained, irritable condition, verging on hypochondria. He had become so completely absorbed in himself and isolated from his fellows that he dreaded meeting not only his landlady, but anyone at all. He was crushed by poverty, but the anxieties of his position had of late ceased to weigh upon him. He had given up attending to matters of practical importance. He had lost all desire to do so. Nothing that any landlady could do had a real terror for him, but to be stopped on the stairs, to be forced to listen to her trivial, irrelevant gossip, to pestering demands for payment, threats and complaints, and to rack his brains for excuses, to prevaricate, to lie. No. Rather than that, he would creep down the stairs like a cat and slip out unseen. This evening, however, on coming out into the street, he became acutely aware of his fears. I want to attempt a thing like that, and am frightened by these trifles, he thought, with an odd smile. Yes. All is in a man's hands, and he lets it all slip from cowardice. That's an axiom. It would be interesting to know what it is men are most afraid of. Taking a new step, uttering a new word is what they fear most. But I am talking too much. It's because I chatter that I do nothing. Or perhaps it is that I chatter because I do nothing. I've learned to chatter this last month, lying for days together in my den thinking of Jack the Giant Killer. Why am I going there now? Am I capable of that? Is that serious? It is not serious at all. It's simply a fantasy to amuse myself, a plaything. Yes, maybe it is a plaything. The heat in the street was terrible, and the airlessness, the bustle and the plaster, scaffolding, bricks, and dust all about him, and that special Petersburg stench, so familiar to all who are unable to get out of town in summer, all worked painfully upon the young man's already overwrought nerves. The insufferable stench from the pothouses, which are particularly numerous in that part of...
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.